We are joined today by the Reverend Andrew Morley, who is the full-time president and CEO of World Vision International and also curate part-time at HTB in London. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
Andrew, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here at World Vision.
I've been at World Vision now for just over 3 years. I've been international president and CEO since the beginning of this year. We're an international development and relief and advocacy agency. We're in 100 countries worldwide. We've been around for 70 years and we're one of the largest child-focused NGOs in the world. Our focus is absolutely children, and we have a model where we in for the long term. So we attend disaster, relief and development, but our idea is that we want to be first in to those difficult places but be the last out. We're in for the long term. It's a long-term transformational development.
And tell us a little bit about your journey of faith.
My journey of faith, great question. I was sales and marketing director at Sky TV at the time, just before joining Google and Motorola. I was invited to an Alpha course and I was intrigued and I said yes, give me an opportunity to ask questions, and within 2 weeks I'd made a faith commitment. I found out that Jesus was real, and that was all through an Alpha course, through HTB, so I've gone full circle now, serving on staff at HTB, but my life's been transformed as a result. I'm a happier person and I feel like I have a purpose. Well, you mentioned that I'm connected to Holy Trinity Brompton HTB in London, and my role there is very much to serve. You know, one week I might be dressed as a bear, welcoming people as they walk through the door. The next week, this weekend just gone, I spoke at HTB about help further God's mission.
And World Vision and Barna have partnered on this Connected Generation study, which you're well aware of. I just want to get your thoughts and reflections on a few of the findings from that study. One of them is that this generation of millennials are connected but alone. They despite being hyper-connected and globally minded generation, many of them feel lonely. What would be your reflections on that and maybe some of your experiences of that?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you would think connected and alone are two opposites, but they seem to exist in this generation together. And the idea of connection comes from social media, it comes from largely technology. And my experience, I used to work for Google and Motorola, and I know just how much technology is an integral part of a millennial's life. But also they have lost somehow the social connections that previous generations seem to enjoy more. So they talk about loneliness, they talk about only a third of the people that we interviewed across the globe felt that someone really cared for them and really was interested in their life and how they achieved their goals. And it's this idea that they don't feel like they're cared for, nurtured, and they don't feel like they have the support mechanism despite having thousands of friends on Facebook, Instagram, etc.
One of the other findings in the study was that millennials, the millennial generation, are looking for answers, particularly around areas of human suffering and global conflict. But they also seem to think that the church is not necessarily answering those questions. What would be your reflections on that?
World Vision was started with a prayer. It started with a prayer, let my heart be broken with the things that break the heart of God. And what's beautiful to see in this millennial generation is that they feel absolutely heartbroken at injustice in this world. To use that, to bring that passion, that heartbreak that this generation really feels, to make a difference to the world, I think that that's a wonderful opportunity. And what we find from this generation is that they have their own unique passion points, that everyone develops their own causes that they feel passionate about. And one of the things I've found in the church and also in World Vision is where you give people a voice, where you give this generation a voice to connect, to engage, be it through social media, be it through prayer groups particularly. Matthew 25, one of the initiatives that we have with a number of our officers, has really helped to do this, for people to really engage with what's happening across the world and feel listened to. That changes the dynamic.
What advice would you give to leaders about how they can intentionally develop the next generation?
I think the biggest thing we can invest is our time. We're all very busy. Everyone's very busy. but giving time to this new generation coming through to listen to them, not to just start with preconceptions about who they are, what they think and what they do, but to really listen to what drives them. They're very passionate. They're passionate about the world, they're passionate about making a difference. By giving them time, I think that that's the secret ingredient that we have here. And that comes through time and time again in the report.
There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now, whether it's political or economic or social. What gives you hope about what God is doing through this current generation?
Yeah, I'd say I see God at move. I see God moving in the groups that I help to support and mentor at HTB. I see God at move in the cities that I visit in my work. A couple of weeks ago I was at a place called San Pedro Sula in Honduras, which is one of the world's most violent cities. And we saw people who are living on the absolute breadline, people who are facing daily violence, often drug-related violence. But in all of that, I saw God at work, and I saw people with hope, and our people who are volunteers and work for World Vision, bringing that hope and being the hands and feet of Jesus in those very dark places.
What bright spots are you seeing in this generation when it comes to missional engagement and activism around the world?
I'm seeing that this generation, the males and females in this generation, are informed. So they know what's happening around the world. Social media helps, but also they're much more engaged with news and just trying to understand what's happening on a global perspective. They're global citizens. So that's the first thing, they're informed. The second thing is that they care. So not just do they know what's going on around the world, but they want to make a difference. And that, where you have people who understand what's going on, but have a passion to make the difference, you can marry those two things together, and that can really be a force for good. And we see that with some of the movements that we've experienced over the last year with Greta Thunberg, and some of the movements that have been largely driven by millennials, or just younger than millennials, but people are coming through wanting to make a difference. They know what's happening and they care, and they want to use that passion to change the world.
Andrew, it's been a real pleasure spending time with you today. Thanks for your reflections, and we appreciate all your insight.
Thank you. God bless you.